Old Indiana Jones, a falling box office, and a crashing stock. Plus, there's plenty of Star Wars questions. It's all coming to you on the latest Cues from You. Let's dive in right now. All right, folks, welcome back to another fantastic day here on the WDW Pro channel. So excited to have each and every one of you with us. We're doing one of those videos that we love to do so much, the Cues from You, where we hand over the channel briefly to members, Tier 2 and up, who wish to send in their questions and let us know their thoughts, their curiosities, and then we're happy to answer them. Typically, we have a guest host, but due to a scheduling issue, we'll have to get our intended host for this week with us next, I hope. Now, before we get into this, folks, if you like content like it, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. We're trying to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve. It's what we do each and every day. And by the way, in regards to a video we did yesterday on Tony Gilroy and issues with defending Kathleen Kennedy and how that was spun by the media out there, I just want to say that we heard your criticisms about that video. It's not often that we receive criticisms. And when we do, we want to be very careful about listening. And so as we realized that we had not done a good enough job of delineating between what Tony Gilroy said and what the media was reporting, we just felt that that came up a little bit short, and we wanted to acknowledge that to all of you. So thank you to all of you who let us know that we're missing that important part of the news in that video yesterday, and we'll have coverage of that going forward as well. All right, let's dive into the cues from youth this week. We've got Indy Phantom with a question to us. It says, the Cannes debacle with Dial of Destiny is perplexing. Past films with bad reception have undergone recuts before release. What if they choose an alternate version to muddy the critical waters? And I'm glad you asked that question. Let's take a look at this article from KXLY.com. Harrison Ford does not need anybody's help getting off a horse. Now, you might not think that has a connection to the question being asked, but it does. Let me show you why. This out of CNN, carried by this outlet. Harrison Ford is a thriving action star at 80 years old. Embracing his age both on and off set is a topic that continues to pop up while Ford promotes his latest action film, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. And he wants everyone to know that even as an octogenarian, he doesn't need anybody's help dismounting a horse. Recalling a moment on the Dial of Destiny said in a new Esquire interview published Wednesday, Ford said that he intentionally brushed off the help of a gaggle of stuntmen who rushed over to assist him off a horse after he finished a horseback riding scene. He said, I thought, what the blank, like I was being attacked by gropers, he told the outlet. Continued to share that when he looked down, there's 3 stunt guys there making sure I didn't fall off the stirrup. He said, I'm an old man getting off a horse, and I want to look like that, he added. Now, he goes on in this particular interview to talk about how he wanted to be ambitious with the character. As he approaches his 81st birthday in July, Ford said in Wednesday's interview that he set out to make his final Indiana Jones movie an ambitious one. I don't mean that we didn't make ambitious movies before, he added. They were ambitious in many different ways, but not necessarily as ambitious with the character as I wanted the last one to be. And folks, that's really getting back to what this problem is. And that's why I don't think that this film is going to be recut or fixed or re-edited at the last minute, the last minute of the 11th hour as it gets ready to go to theaters. I think that despite the terrible reviews, despite what I think is going to be a depressing, lowly sort of feature of Indiana Jones this time, I think this is what they want to make. And I think they're proud of it. Even Harrison Ford. And that's not to say that Harrison Ford is a bad guy or that he wanted to make a bad indie film or that we should be upset with him. It is to say that good producers, good executive producers, good writers and good directors know that actors want to push themselves to the limits and they want to go into new places. But those individuals who are above the actors also know what makes a great film. And I don't think that people are going to Indiana Jones with the desire to see someone who is very old and elderly being upstaged by a goddaughter. And so that should have been conveyed. The parameters should have been set. You have to get your actors to be in something that will drive audiences when you have a budget that's going to require $1 billion to make a profit. So poor decision making all the way around, and I don't think they're going to fix it yet. One other quick note that I think is also worthwhile that we should discuss is the fact that we're going to see played out this summer the very different strategies regarding aging heroes. And this is something that we've been watching from Hollywood over the past few years. Disney has a distinct idea of how to do that. They've done this repeatedly, where they take heroes as they are aging and they make them out to be something that is less than impressive. They turn them into hermits. They turn them into curmudgeon-y old men, guys who have stopped believing in that which they once pursued. However, Tom Cruise, he's went with a completely different direction, and we're going to see how that plays out with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning going up 12 days after Indiana Jones. I suspect that what we're going to find out is that audiences want to see their heroes remain consistent, even though they may be diminished physically. They want them to maintain their heroism. They want them to maintain their virtue. They want them to maintain their bravado. And I think we're going to get exactly that out of Hollywood as the Tom Cruise model wins bigly. Darth Apathy says, I am looking at Disney's current box office woes and considering the market value affecting situation with other companies like Anheuser-Busch and Target. Do you think we've turned a corner? If so, what do you think marked the point when consumers started saying enough is enough? What do you think will need to happen before companies are changed by this tipping point? Of course, of particular personal interest is Lucasfilm in the direction of our beloved franchises. Well, I think that in most points of history, what occurs is that there is a pushing and a pushing and a pushing, and it seems gradual, and then it builds to a crescendo, and then all of a sudden the dam breaks and the momentum suddenly shifts. I think that's true in all sorts of different domains. And in this case, I'm not sure exactly what suddenly tipped people over the edge, but I think that it actually predates this thing with the alcoholic beverage company. I think this was happening before, and they just stepped in it unknowing that the pendulum had already changed. I actually think that perhaps Disney is the company from which this all started. And maybe it had to do with last year's box office. And the media just, they didn't pay attention. They didn't realize it because the media, they're not prescient. They don't take notice of things that are happening right under their nose sometimes. It's because they're not paying close enough attention. Space Dave 2000 says, are the parks hitting a price where it is finally affecting attendance? I've heard it is going down, yet most online walkthroughs look super busy still. And this question is Disney World specific. All right, well, let's go to this one. This one out of the Disney Tourist blog. This is an article that I've shown before. It is highly in-depth by Tom Bricker, and I highly recommend it. Slowest 6-week stretch for Disney World crowd since 2021. Remember, that was the year that the pandemic was raging and causing so many people to still be hesitant to go to the parks. And if you look at all the information here, look at these wonderful graphs we have showing the data, showing the wait times, showing the levels of attendance. It's really good stuff. And yes, indeed, attendance is down at Disney World. That's why we're seeing things like the Disney dining plan returning. That's why we're seeing things like the Florida resident passes 4-day for the summer that are so cheap. They're really trying to fill the resort at a time when that's becoming more difficult. Great question. We've got Tommy Tables. He says, as Disney stock tanks, is it conceivable that Chapek could come into play again, especially as a Peltz ally? Well, absolutely. Should we see another proxy war, or should we see pressure placed on Disney by individuals such as Peltz, such as Perlmutter, perhaps even Eisner? It stands to reason that Chapek, who has significant stock, would side with them. Surely he would not go to the side of Bob Iger. Now, that's just my speculation and no financial advice being given here. But absolutely, Tommy, I think that's a great point you bring up. Chapek will be someone who could potentially hop in and throw his hat in. And here's the funny thing about that. He was largely maligned in the media. But as the stock is doing poorly, as the company overall is doing poorly, confidence is being lost in Bob Iger. And you could actually see a future where Bob Chapek is seen as someone who was subverted unnecessarily, and that become the official narrative. simply because of how poorly Iger is doing. I have a feeling that many will circle the wagons trying to defend Iger, though, in that case, because it would look very poorly on them, given how they handled the coverage of Chapek during his tenure. Reply by Mail says, is Vanguard still woke? And have they changed course still, having 9% stake in BlackRock? Well, Vanguard seems to have stepped away some from some of this stuff. It depends on how you define the woke stuff. One of the biggest things that's happening right now, though, is that due to some states making it illegal to invest from the state level into ESG projects, that's making it very difficult for some of these investing companies to do so. And that's also pitting them against entities like the United Nations, which is trying to force it. So therefore, you're seeing these companies actually siding very quietly with those who oppose the ESG stuff, simply because the economic impact for them is greater if they are abandoned by, let's say, red states in the United States and others, versus if they stay with the United Nations. All right, we've got a question from Flack Monkey. Says, I have a few questions, but they are all in the same vein. What is the profit sharing of the Beijing Disney park between the CCP and Disney? Well, that information is a little difficult to get, but it seems to me that Disney, with ownership that's equivalent to about 47% of the resort, they receive 47% of the revenues. However, taxation in China is extremely high on American corporations. And so we assume that of that 47%, Disney is likely receiving only somewhere between 20 and 30% of that slice of the pie. So not much. And don't let anyone fool you on how Disney is doing in Shanghai. It's Iger's baby, but it's not taking off. If there is a profit sharing, was a specific currency chosen, or can China make Disney take the yuan? Well, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know the specifics of that contractual agreement, but I would assume that it is in Chinese currency, and then it is moved over into USD down the road. Number 3, was there a cost sharing between the CCP and Disney for building the park? Yes, there was. So my understanding is that Disney invested $5.5 billion into building the park, and that China covered the infrastructural parts of building this. So there was quite a bit of work that had to go into getting this park accessible. And one of those is that an entire train line had to be developed to bring in guests to this area. It's not centered in an urban area, even though it is technically in Shanghai. They put this thing quite a distance away. And so China invested in making sure that it was accessible. Disney invested in building the thing. If Disney paid for the entire thing, do you think they understood that all land is owned by the CCP and that they're merely leasing it? I think they understand very well that they could lose the park. I think they understood that going in. I think that Iger did this as a means by which to try to transform the world and to build his legacy. He probably believed that he could influence China more than China could influence Disney, and that was fundamentally incorrect. One would have thought that, but with how badly they're messing up in Florida, I now question my initial thinking. Same here. Just a thought here, being as Bob Iger is all about being a good citizen of the world, and well, I'm not sure he is on that one, and reflecting the world we live in, I'm getting a bit of schadenfreude seeing the Little Mermaid collapse overseas. Maybe Mr. Iger should consider seeing the world beyond the velvet rope of his private yacht and jet. Well, I would say that there's some hypocrisy in Mr. Iger's positions. I'm not sure that what he presents publicly is in total alignment with his private life. And again, that comes back to that yacht you're talking about. It's one thing to say that your company is going to be carbon net zero, and it's another thing to have a giant yacht that you enjoy all over the world that is burning all kinds of fuel. So EU Guru says, what are the chances that the talk about how much heir to the empire will be changed is just talk till KK, that's Kathleen Kennedy, is out the door? Then it will be full steam with the real sequels, the Thrawn trilogy. Wishful thinking, I know, but surely it's crossing Favreau's mind. To stick it to KK, and I know, don't call you Shirley. Very, very good. I think everything is in flux at the point that Kathleen Kennedy is sent out of the door. The only exception to that is I believe the Rey movie is likely going to happen, because I think that was something that Iger wanted to happen. And I think that Iger will see that developed, not brought to fruition, but developed up until the point that he leaves as the CEO. And don't forget that Iger will remain at the company as a consultant with his official office. He's going nowhere. He will still be paid. He'll still be a big deal at the company. He just won't be the CEO. Now, in terms of Kathleen Kennedy, you all know, and I will apologize if we're wrong, but our sources, for the very first time ever, have said that Kathleen Kennedy is likely to leave Lucasfilm in the next year or so. Now, I know that many have said that, and there are many on YouTube who have said that in good faith. There are also some charlatans out there. I get that, but this is the first time I've ever said it. And for years, I have been one of those individuals saying, no, she's not being fired. No, she's not retiring. No, they're not going to end her contract. They're extending it. And I was giving details about that. This is the first time that I'm hearing, and also don't forget that Mike, Mexican Iron Man, has heard the same, that Kathleen Kennedy is likely to leave in the next year. We're following that very closely, and we'll give you details as we come across it. All right, and then Slade Wilson says, how much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Seriously, though, what legal options are there to get someone like Boricua, baptized brother, insert Mexican Iron Man emoji, to comb through Disney's books for shenanigans? Shareholders or board members can't demand access. Please explain how publicly traded companies handle access to all their financial transactions. Thank you. Well, they do the least that is required of them by whatever governments they are within. So if it's in the United Kingdom, for example, one of the ways that we are able to track what's going on with Star Wars, you may recall that we were telling that they were going to make the Acolyte, There were rumors that that was not going to happen. We said, yes, they are making the Acolyte. And the way we were able to know that is because in the United Kingdom, Disney, Lucasfilm, they're required to do quite a bit of reporting on their productions. And so they even go to such an extent as to create shell companies over there. And so we were watching the shell company that we knew was created in order to bring the Acolyte to screens, and we were watching the financial information about that. So that's a brief answer on how this works. Each country is different. In the United States, companies are going to release absolutely the minimum amount of information, especially if it's negative, that they have to, that's required by investing rules, required by the SEC, etc. And in terms of investigating Disney's financial situation, well, you better believe that everything that we can acquire ethically and legally, that we are working on doing that. That's the journalism of the channel. That's the journalism of the channels in our orbit. Jonas J. Campbell, the investigative reporter for that Park Place, has contacts you would not believe now. And it has been, well, let's just give a shout out to the sources. We have picked up a number of significant sources, added to the list, the roster that we already had. And they're honestly, you guys are the electricity that drives this thing, but they're the ones who also put their necks out there. They take the risk, and they trust us to keep them anonymous and protect their identities and protect their methods of getting that information. And we're happy to do that. We're so pleased to be able to give that to you all. We're attempting to explain entertainment, keep you ahead of the culture curve, and hopefully we nudge this world in a better place. That's what we intend to do. That's what we endeavor to do each and every day. And hopefully that separates us out. And hopefully you can see just how hard we are working to give you good and accurate information, and also to encourage all of you and everyone else out there to do their very best in this world. Honestly, if that's the impact we can have, then what a joy that would be to know that we have tried, at least, and perhaps been somewhat successful to make this place better. That would be good. Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this latest Cues from You. I hope we covered some information. Again, we usually have a host on here. We had a bit of a scheduling issue. Next time, we'll have a host on here for sure. But if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And you can stick it to the algorithms when you click it. We're talking about the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Is there anything else I should have covered? Any other details you'd like to know about? We cover your comments. We care about what you're thinking. We actually pay attention to you. We don't dismiss you or attack you when you have legitimate concerns. We're happy to have you on board. If you're not yet a member of the channel, if you'd like to support us a little extra, become a member. We'll give you all kinds of exclusive content. And folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
'Cause you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?